All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy chilly, rainy. I think I saw a little bit of the sun Wednesday. So, welcome to our Limitless Month event today. My name is Alicia Robinson. I'm the founder and executive of Limitless Ambition. Limitless Ambition is a 501c3 organization that serves Northeast Ohio by doing teen enrichment programs, donating care packages to young girls in foster care, and throwing women's empowerment events. Every year, we typically have a fall social that kind of shares a little bit about our organization. But due to 2020 and COVID, we had to get really creative this year. So we decided to have a series of empowerment talks throughout the month of October. This is our third one. I see a lot of repeat faces. So thank you all for sticking with us. This is great. Like, it makes me feel so good. So we'll just dive right on into it. So today we will be hearing from Brenda Coulter. She will be talking about shifting your mindset and various things of that nature, another empowering talk. Brenda is a newer Limitless Ambition board member, but when she joined, she dove right in. So she is one of our co-chairs of our Fund Development Committee. She is just a mastermind and leader in the community. You can always see her out moving and shaking and impacting and changing lives. She is also just a joy to be around, and anytime you're in her presence, you're gonna giggle, you're gonna laugh, and she's gonna tell you like it is. So without further ado, I want to pass it over to the beautiful Brenda Coulter.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I will tell you a little bit more about myself. I promise. Alicia, I can't share. It says it's disabled. You're talking and you're muted, I think.
I said, sorry, I got so into our Microsoft Office conversation. I forgot to do my one job I had. All right, you should be good.
It was a really good conversation. Okay. I don't know exactly what I'm sharing, but I'm going to go ahead and put this on presents. I hope I can still see y'all with it on this. Okay, so today we are really going to be talking about destroying limiting beliefs. As we know, when it comes to living limitlessly, it's very important that we identify and then be able to destroy those things that are keeping us limited. So I really wanted to dig in with something that is near and dear to my heart. We'll get really specific about what limiting beliefs are, and we'll talk about some common as well as some uncommon limiting beliefs as well. So this is me. I am the owner of Her Beautiful Mind and the managing partner of Silk Consulting. I'm also the founder of Be the Reason and the Ohio Coalition for the Prevention of Black Maternal Toxic Stress. And all of that just means that I specialize in overcoming the past, overcoming the things in our history that create barriers to our future selves. So all around living limitlessly. I do that through teaching people about the STEER model, which we'll talk a little bit about today. I'll kind of touch on it a bit. And my motto is that pain only lasts so long before it manifests into magnificence. So Her Beautiful Mind is all about helping you realize your own magnificence. Anytime I do a presentation, I always start with a very basic definition of exactly what we're talking about. Words mean things, so it's very important that we get a baseline understanding of what we're talking about today. So what exactly is a limiting belief? Well, a limit is a point or a level beyond which something does not or may not extend past. So or it can be a reconstruction or the size of amount of something permissible or possible. So it's just a limiting belief is a belief that keeps us held back and it keeps us from moving forward. And Abraham Hicks says that a belief is a thought that you keep thinking. So my goal today is to show you that you can shift your entire mindset so that you can begin to think differently, so that you can start to believe differently and have a little bit more belief in the positivity that you can lend to the world. So in week one, Tiffany said that she wanted you to quiet the things that dull your light. In week 2, Zinga said that she wants you to fuel the things that set your light ablaze. Well, I want you to douse the flames of fear that burn in your heart. I want you to no longer be fearful about the things that you may feel limited about. And again, to shift your mindset so that you can know that there are no limits on you. And I think that this is very important, especially as it pertains to limitless ambition, because I love how we're taking these young girls at a very young age so that they can learn these things moving forward, and they're not having to tackle them in their adulthood. They can actually tackle them while they're still young and before they become a major issue. So to start out, what are some common limiting beliefs that we all know and hear about? Well, the first one is I am not or cannot. A lot of the time you will hear someone saying, and it could be yourself, it could be other people around you, what they are not able to do, what they are not going to do. And again, using that kind of verbiage, it places limitations on you, and it prevents you or can prevent you from being able to move forward. I do not. This is one that a lot of us get stuck in, especially if you're a parent like me. I will tell my kids in a minute, I do not feel like doing that. I do not want to do that. But just understanding that we do not have to live in these limiting thoughts and mindsets. And using words like just and only, they can be very restrictive. So we're going to talk about why this verbiage is so important, because most of us don't realize that we're using these words in our day-to-day language, and words have power. So what we want to do is change your language around some of the things that you may feel limited about. So why is it that we have these limiting beliefs? I believe very much that it's very important that we learn about how our brain works and what it is in our brain that's creating issues when it comes to thoughts and beliefs. So there's a part in your brain that's called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is part of the limbic system of your brain, and it's responsible for processing emotions. If you've ever heard of fight, flight, or freeze, this is the part of your body that governs that. So it's kind of like Chicken Little. It always believes that the sky is falling because it remembered past situations. It keeps emotional inventory. So if you think about it, anything that you've ever heard someone say about you or about another person, that is stuck in the back of your head. That is stuck in your amygdala. So when you start to experience these limiting beliefs, those thoughts that you've received from other people soon can start to become your own if you're not careful. And a very cute and easy way that we have for you to remember this is I named the amygdala, and her name is Amy G. So again, this is Amy G. Dalla, and she really has very positive intentions. She's trying to keep you safe. She's really trying to protect you. So she says things like, what if I try and I fail? I have to make sure that so-and-so is happy. Nothing ever works out for me. Again, all of those all-encompassing thoughts and beliefs, that's what Amy is telling you in the back of your mind, that is keeping you limited and keeping you bound and also keeping you from moving forward. So the good thing is that when we receive this part of our brain, we also have another part of our brain that's the exact opposite. And what I'm going to teach you today will train your brain to shift from your amygdala into your prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex, it houses all of our executive functions. So that's the planning, the predicting, the prioritizing, but it also manages your impulsivity and your control. So all of that predicting, while Amy is telling you about all of the bad and negative and scary things that are going on in the world, this part of your brain is actually managing that with logic. So this is where our logic comes from. So the goal becomes to disengage Amy and to engage Professor Ron Tall. Another way to know exactly this part of your brain. It's just a really great way to remember. And it's so funny because when you think about things like this, you will start to notice that Amy and Professor Ron will start to have conversations in your head. And it's hilarious when I introduce these characters to my clients. I hear very often where they say, well, Amy said this and Professor Ron came back and he told her this. So if you ever find yourself in that place to where you're having a limiting belief and you really don't know how to shift out of it, think of some things that Professor Ron might say, such as, look at all the lessons I've learned from past failures. If I'm not happy, how can I make sure that everyone else is happy? And again, when we use those all-encompassing words like ever, he helps us to question that and says never, like as in never ever, and really encourages you to ask yourself, is this a true statement? Does nothing ever work out for you, or is this one thing just creating a barrier for you? When I introduce those two characters, people always go, okay, Brenda, that sounds very easy. That makes sense. Thank you very much for that. But how do I do it? So I'm going to give you a very brief explanation of what the STEER model is. And this is a model that absolutely changed my life, because what it taught me is that the way that I was thinking, the way that society and the world and my parents and history taught me to think and behave, it didn't have to be my normal, that I could create a new normal to where I can decide exactly what my thoughts look like, which over time would create what my emotion looks like. So the STEER model stands for situation, thought, emotion, execution, and result. And what that encourages you to do is to take a pause and to think about the situation that you're experiencing. And then you ask yourself, what is the thought that I'm having about this situation? Because it's that thought that's going to create your emotion. So once you figure out exactly what the thought is that's creating your emotion, that's creating the execution and your results, you can switch the thoughts to a thought that Professor Ron would have instead of one that Amy G would have. And that ultimately shifts your emotions that you're having and your execution, and it gets you better result. That's the best way to explain a model that it really takes 21 days to teach. So if you have any questions about it, I have worksheets that I can send out to you guys that can make the STEER model a little bit easier to understand. Today, I wanted to tackle some more common, some uncommon limiting beliefs, because we all know about the can'ts and won'ts and don'ts and shouldn'ts and shoulds and all of those. But what we don't realize is how sometimes society can form limitations on our thoughts and beliefs, and we don't even realize that it's being done. There are things that we say on a daily basis that may seem perfectly fine, they may seem perfectly normal, but what I want to do is just teach you that there's a different way that you can think about these things so that they're no longer limiting you and no longer keeping you bound. So we'll walk through each one of these, but the first is not being able to associate with other women. Working with women, this is a phrase that, no lie, I probably hear about 5 or 6 times a day. I hear some woman say how she cannot associate with other women. So we're going to dig into that mindset and figure out how it's keeping you limited and what you can do to overcome those limitations. Also, loyalty is everything. I challenge you. Is it really everything? Because we're going to talk about something that pertains to loyalty that may make you want to rethink that a little bit. And it may make you realize that you're limiting yourself with that thought. Don't talk about it, be about it. That's a societal norm, once again, that we're going to rethink. And also, what God has for me is for me. And when I get to that one, everybody always goes like, really, Brenda, how can that be limiting me? But I promise you, I will explain how you could be. You may not necessarily be, but you could be limited by that thought. So first, we'll touch on not being able to associate or work with or deal with other women. This actually used to be a part of my everyday language. So I really can't knock anyone who's thinking or feeling this way, but I know that it kept me limited in business and it kept me limited in my relationships and my friendships with others. And what I had to do was dig inside myself and kind of explore a little bit what was going on there, because it really makes no sense. Like anytime you can generalize a group of people and say, I can't deal with this group of people for this reason, it really bodes some introspection. And I realized that. So the first thing that I realized was there were similarities about myself, between myself and some of these women. So one thing you might want to ask yourself is, do you see something in them that reminds you of an undesirable trait that you either do possess or you did possess? And this will kind of have you go inside yourself and realize if it's something that you did possess, then maybe you can help this woman through that. And if it's something that you do possess and you don't like it in her, it can prompt a little bit of change inside yourself and maybe shift that mindset as well. Second, it could be envy. Do you see something in her that you don't see in yourself, but you wish that you did? Again, this really takes some being honest with yourself and being truthful. And in the end, we'll get some tools for that. But it requires you to be really truthful and dig into honestly how you feel about these women in these situations. And third, which is not necessarily a bad thing, it's just bad vibes or negative energy, whatever it is that you want to call it. Do you just not get a vibe from them, but you're not sure why? And understand that that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't associate with them in any way, because honestly, I'm sure that we all know some people in our lives that we may not necessarily get the greatest vibes from, but we still have to figure out how to work with them. So this will kind of help you through that as well. Loyalty is everything. So this is something that my youngest clients often struggle with, but my older clients, once I break it down, they usually get it a little bit better and it makes sense. I just want everyone to know that there is a such thing called toxic loyalty. There is a way that you can be too loyal to someone or too loyal to a situation. And the way that you can analyze that is, are you being loyal to others to your own detriment? Meaning, are you giving beyond what you have to give? Because if you are doing that, then your loyalty is toxic. It's not being helpful for you. And in the end, it's really not going to help the person that you're being loyal to. Does your loyalty create resentment for people in the situations that you're being loyal to? If you notice yourself starting to ignore people's phone calls and not wanting to talk to them at all because you feel as though you're always helping them out, then you could be experiencing a toxic loyalty, and it might be a good idea to set some boundaries. Do you find yourself lacking due to what you do for others? Again, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you're constantly giving and giving and giving and never receiving, that's definitely a way that to show that your loyalty has become toxic. And do you find yourself lying or making excuses not to do things or being dishonest? Like, can you be honest with this person and say, hey, you know what, I really can't do that today, and leave it at that? Or are you like, my grandmother needs to wash her hair and I got to do it for her? Like, are you making up stories to where you don't have to do things? That is another way to kind of let you know that this loyalty to this person or this situation could be toxic. If you realize that your loyalty is toxic, you can ask yourself, what's driving your loyalty? Do you feel obligated to do these things that you're doing? Because that's something that would need to be addressed. Martyrdom. We live in a society where people think it's cool to say, oh, I do everything for everybody and nobody ever does anything for me. And it's like, okay, but that's not a good thing. So if that's what's driving you, then again, these things that you're doing is not coming from a healthy place. Or is it for a sense of belonging and youthfulness? As women, specifically, I'm going to say African-American women, we usually feel useful when we're helping someone out, when we are doing other things for everybody else, when we're ripping and running and doing all of these things. We don't necessarily look at situations and go, hey, let me figure out exactly what I need to get out of this. So I think it's very important to know that if your loyalty is based on a need to belong or to feel useful, then again, that is something that you might want to look deeper into. Don't talk about it, be about it. Now, this always confuses people. And I'm not saying that you can't say, I'm just saying talk about it and be about it. It's very important that we do both. So if someone says, don't say this and don't do that, I really don't necessarily agree with that. And I'm going to tell you why. Words can change your brain. The words that we speak, a single word has the power to influence the expression of genes that regulate physical emotion and stress, meaning the words that you speak physically are able to change your brain and to change your body, how you feel. So if you want to do a thing, then I think it's very healthy for you to speak it as well as to do it. And words can impact the people around us. The words that we use repeatedly, whether positive or negative, are the framework through which the energy of life moves through us. So just knowing that speaking positivity, just like speaking negativity, can control our environments and the energy around us, and being mindful of that. And also speaking life over something is just as important as doing the work. So I'm not saying, talk about everything or that you have to share everything that you're doing with someone, but I am saying that it's okay to talk about it, just like it's okay to be about it. And finally, what God or what my creator has for me is for me. The way that this can become a limitation is if you're resting on just that thought process. If you're not doing the work that it requires to ensure that you are ready to receive whatever this thing is that your higher power has for you. So, a few things that you can ask yourself is, have you even established a relationship with your creator? Like, do you know who he or she is? Do they know you? Like, have you spoken with them? Have you prayed to them? Have you had conversations? And can you discern what it is that they're telling you? Because it requires a two-way relationship to even know exactly what it is that your creator is telling you that is in alignment with what he or she has for your life. Is this in alignment with the divine plan for your life? We have to be able to discern the voice of God in order to be able to know if we are functioning properly, because we just because you want a thing doesn't make it automatically yours. It has to fall in alignment with exactly what it is that you are supposed to be doing in your life. And you have to be able to recognize your life path. So just making sure that you've done that preliminary work to ensure that you're even on the right path to begin with. And finally, have you done the work? Relationships thrive on reciprocity. So in those things, in that praying and in that work that you've done, all of your praying to God, have you actually followed the steps that you've been directed to take? And have you established a pattern of proven works? Have you shown that you're worthy of this thing that you are aiming to receive? So yes, what God has for you is for you, but it also requires you to do the work in order for you to be able to receive it. There's another requirement, and resting on this statement alone is a great way to continue to feel limited, because you really won't be able to realize the things that you want to. So, how do you do this? All of these things, now we know exactly what the limiting beliefs are. We know exactly how they're keeping us held back. We know what our brains are doing. So, I'd love to give practical tips and strategies. I call them tangible takeaways that you can actually walk away from this and think about it on a dime. So, anytime one of my clients comes to me with an issue, I always ask them, do you have your keys? And they know that what I'm asking is if they have walked through this fundamental process, and that is to know your truth, to evaluate your truth, and to yield to your truth. So, anytime we're working on problem solving and figuring out exactly what it is that we want to do moving forward, or what's best for us to do to move forward, the first thing we have to do is know our truth. A lot of the time, we move on just kind of moving. We really don't take the time to sit and think about be honest with ourselves about how we're feeling, what it is that we're thinking. Even if you write this down, I'm a journaler by nature. I journal constantly. I keep my journal with me. It's always next to me. So when I'm problem solving, I write out exactly what my issue is and what my truth about that situation is, and I'm completely honest. It kind of goes back to when we talked about what our not being able to associate with women. It requires you to like utilize some internal truth to know if you are feeling envious, if you are feeling any of those things that we talked about with that. Evaluate your truth. So once you've established exactly what your personal truth is, then you can weigh it, you can dissect it. Does this make sense? Is this in alignment with what it is that I see in the future for my life? Is this what I want to do moving forward? And it kind of gets you to set a path and set a direction moving forward. And then yield to your truth. And that just means you honor your truth with caution. And the reason that I say with caution is because you have to understand that, I mean, things change. We do sometimes change our mind. It's the same reason we reevaluate our SMART goals ever so often, because when you honor something with caution, it gives you a direction to go in, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay on that direction. You can always come back. You can always revisit it and decide if there's something else or another path that you'd like to take. So from now on, if you find yourself in a dilemma or having something that you need to figure out, this is not just with limiting beliefs, you can always ask yourself if you have your keys. And kind of to wrap it up, these keys that I've just given you are really, I mean, they can open the door to anything, and they are what is going to enable you to live limitlessly. And just always knowing that if anything is possible, then everything is possible. Far too often, we use our imaginations to figure worst case scenarios, but that same imagination that you're using to figure a worst case scenario, you can use that same imagination to imagine something positive and imagine something great. So again, if anything is possible, everything is possible. And that is really it. I want to say thank you so very much to our sponsors who made this Limitless Month possible. I don't know about y'all, but I've gotten some really great gems these last 3 weeks. Like, I've loved every single talk. So thank you to Rising Careers Coaching and Resume Writing, to Nebby Braids and Naturals Salon, to 1965 Collection, and to Monica's Creations. And I think we're going to open up for questions, but I'll let Alicia, I don't know. I think that's where we go next.
Thank you so much, Brenda. This was amazing. Does anybody have any questions that we want to ask about anything that she said? Any examples? I'm just going to open it up. Siobhan said, awesome. Well, people resonate on questions. I will ask a question because I always have questions.
You don't.
You seem like a very grounded, rooted individual. Mostly, I've seen you when you're little, but like, you always recenter. That's one thing I really love and enjoy about you. Like, no matter how frantic the day is, you'll be like, I just did this, this, and this. It's calm now. I'm great. So what are some of the grounding practices you have? What are some self-care things you do? How do you balance all the different projects you have going on? Like, what are some of your keys to balancing things?
I frequently do something that we call take two, or you call it practice the pause. I take my 2 minutes. I don't think people understand the value in just taking a 2-minute pause during the course of the day when you can't figure something out, when you're frustrated, when you just get to a point to where you feel like you just can't. I will stop, whether it is going off and locking myself in the restroom. But after 90 seconds, your body kind of starts to settle down a little bit. Your heart rate will slow down, and it gives you the ability to kind of think through whatever it is that you're dealing with. So that's one thing that I do on a day-to-day basis, on a very regular basis. I probably take two about 10 times a day. And as far as self-care, I don't do any work on Sundays. No work. And it's not necessarily a self-care day. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go to the spa or to the salon or something like that. I just don't work. I'm not going to do any work. And also get my nails done. I go get my nails done for my regular method of self-care every 2 weeks. I budget it in like a bill.
I think that's it. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask? I have another one, but then I am gonna like just longly pause and wait for somebody. I do have another one.
Longly pause.
And I will forget it if I don't just ask it. So you talked a lot about just shifting our beliefs and our mindset and the different negative narratives that we have in our life. And so I have a friend, and she had a big job interview today, and she stressed about it so much, and like she was like psyching herself out. I was like, if you don't change what you're thinking, you're going to self-sabotage yourself, and your negativity is going to come through in the job interview, and you're not going to get the job. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize how you literally create your reality with your words. And so you talked a lot about the limiting beliefs that we think and different things we say, but do you have any grounding affirmations or different thoughts that like you would like to throw out there? What are just some different things that you think on a regular to kind of bring your thoughts back? Or even some things you may practice for us to start to shift the narratives of like, that narrator voice that we already have in our mind.
Does anybody watch, what is the name of that? What's that show with Issa Rae? Like, I talk to myself in the mirror, like I will hype myself up in a minute. Like, I'll go stand in the mirror like, okay, now this is what you're about to do. You know what I'm saying? But you have to figure out what works for you. So it's very difficult. This is something that I talk kind of with my clients about. And it's so very difficult to give one specific thing because it's different for everyone. I've had clients say, well, I feel weird saying affirmations every day. I don't want to do that. Or, you know what I'm saying? So it's so different. I have scheduled text messages to myself myself. That's something that you can do. I'll set an alarm for a specific time of day, to where I go back to a quote that I've selected that morning, because I do a lot like a studying and things in the morning, and usually something will stand out to me for the course of the day. I download apps on my phone that send me random text messages. I really miss Sprinkle of Jesus. There was a really cool app called Sprinkle of Jesus, and it's not there anymore, but they would just send you random texts throughout the day. So I utilize those apps, and just a lot of, there's one called Headspace, a lot of apps on our phones. I don't think a lot of us realize, like, we do so much on our phones, and there is so many apps for like peace and things like that that you can find on your phones that are really, really, really great. So it really just depends on what works for you. I love affirmations, and I've been out of balance for probably about a week and a half. And this morning I did a 10-minute yoga routine and a 10-minute meditation, and I've been zooming all day. I just felt really, really good. And I had never even tried yoga. I was just like, well, no, I'm not going to say I haven't tried yoga, but I didn't, I would do little, little here and there, downward facing dog or things that I heard of, but I did an actual routine this morning, and that felt really good. So I think I'm going to put that in my morning schedule. So just trying different things.
Love it. Does anybody have?
This isn't really a question, but a comment. And the toxic loyalty really hit home. I've never really thought of it that way, and it was very interesting to think of it that way.
I wish more people would think about it that way, because again, we live in, like, I call it a ride or die society. Like, people feel like if you're not riding constantly for them, then you must not be a really good friend. And I remember there was a post that was going around on Facebook, and the one girl said something about, if your friends are not being there for you during COVID-19 or checking up on you, then you need to reevaluate your friends. And the other girl said, she kind of shared that girl's post, and she was like, if you're expecting people to check up on you, then you're really selfish and you must not be a really good friend. I'm like, how about we just honor our friendships? How about we honor and respect all of our friends for who they are and what they're going through, and allow for it, like allow everyone the grace that they're going to need to react differently, and trusting yourself enough to know that you've surrounded yourself with good people. So, I mean, toxic loyalty, I think is huge, because I cannot stand this whole kind of ride or die mindset, because I'm not riding or dying for anybody. That's just not going to happen. Not in that sense, not to my detriment. That's not going to happen. Any other questions? Why do I feel like, did we get finished early?
A little bit. Well, we still have the wrap on some other things, but we do have time for one more question. Does anybody have any like burning question?
It doesn't help that I talk really fast.
Okay, I'm going to ask a
That's
question.
just for keeping.
So, I think one thing that I sometimes have a problem with is coming back from what I would consider for myself like a failure. Like, so if I see something as going one way in my mind and it doesn't go that way, sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm just not gonna do it no more, or like maybe it wasn't meant for me to do. So, but so sometimes I feel like I may have an issue with bouncing back from failures, even if they're small, or even if it wasn't a failure to nobody else, but if it was a failure to me.
So Pastor Will Smith, he has a really good video that and a conversation that he had about failing forward, which I love and I adore, where he talks about all of these things that how our expectations can be so out of line. And I have come to the point to where, when it comes to people and situations, I've learned to check my expectations. I don't expect anything from anyone or anything that they haven't already shown me that they're capable of. So if this is something brand new that I'm trying, I'm probably going to taper my expectations just a little bit, and not in a way like, oh my God, I know that this isn't going to work. Not in that way, but just being open with my plan A, B, C, and D with, okay, so I'm going to try this. If this doesn't work, I'm going to do this. So maybe what some might see as over planning is something that I do because I like to be able to figure out exactly what different outcomes might happen. Now, there are times where I'm wrong at A, B, C, and D, like none of those happen, but knowing that I plan for every contingency that I could think of is very helpful. And it helps me come up out of that, like, you know what, I kind of did everything I could. And now I know what to do differently next time. Should I decide that I still want to do that? And it's okay if I decide that I don't want to do it anymore. So just allowing yourself grace, I think, is what's important.
That was a great answer. There's also a question in the chat. So Leslie wants to know, do you have any suggestions for keeping Amy G quiet?
People might think I'm crazy. I literally talk to Amy G like, girl, shut up, like sit down. So as it pertains to steer, if you learn more about steer, so I always call Amy G my backseat driver. So I'm like Amy is just in the back seat, like in my ear. So I do a lot of visualization, like actually visualizing her and visualizing my conversations with her. And also understanding her. So even when it comes to Amy, there is a part of y'all, as y'all see, she's like really a person to me. I don't know if it's healthy, but whatever. But, but tapering your expectations with her as well, because again, her being this part of your brain, she really is trying to protect you. And she's going, up, remember the last time you tried this happened. So that's your Amy G Candace that's making you feel away and not wanting you to try again. Like, last time you tried this, it didn't turn out too well. So you just might as well not even do it. And understanding that she's very lovingly asking you to do something, but I see her more kind of as like my younger sister, like, okay, I appreciate you. And sometimes I tell her, thank you very much for reminding me of that, Amy, but I don't think I need that right now. And I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. So it's really about engaging Professor Ron and making sure that you are counteracting or counterbalancing the things that Amy is saying, and understanding that when it comes to the retraining of our brain, it's not just a concept. Like this is you creating new neural pathways. And I always explain to people, like, it's like trying to redirect a river. You've had this way of thinking for so long that you have to forcibly kind of force yourself to think the new way. And as you think the new way more frequently, then that will start to become your default setting. Like when Alicia said, like, I will kind of fall apart, but I always bounce back because I've created those new neural pathways to where it's like, you know what I mean? It's not because, honey, this was not always me. So we'll leave that there.
I love that. That was great. And I love that you said it's like a river forging a new way. So even once you start thinking differently and more positively, like the negativity is still going to creep back in. Right. But if you still have one less negative thought a day, then you're winning. So I really love that analogy. Any other questions? What about, last question for me personally, because I'm just thinking about the things that I hear people talking about a lot. Another thing that I've noticed, and it kind of goes with the whole loyalty thing and a little bit, but I meet really, really ambitious people who have such beautiful, big dreams, and they're not moving forward because of the other people they're surrounding themselves with, and they don't realize the detriment that is. So can you shed a little bit light on that? And then do you have any insight on how that can impact your Amy G or your Professor Ron, and then just how people can maneuver that and how to assess your circle?
Well, I think it's important to understand that a lot of the times we are just as afraid of success as we are a failure. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like it's kind of scary because once you set the bar here, people expect you to stay here or go higher. And if you fall beneath that, it's going to look a kind of way. So sometimes I think we get comfortable in that place of hanging with people who might keep us held back, who might keep us held down. I think I told you this, Alicia. I wouldn't tell, this is just a secret between us here. I told Alicia before, but like there are times to where I'm like, if it's a really rough day, I'm like, God, can I just be like regular people? Like, I don't want to like help change the world. I don't want to help people think differently. I just want to be regular, because once you're responsible for knowing, people expect you to just like, I'm supposed to be like this all the time. And honey, that is not the case. And, and I think that, overcoming that fear of success, first of all, acknowledging that it's there and realizing that it is truly a fear and that there's nothing wrong with you for having that, but then making a solid decision to overcome that, and doing the work that's required to do that, which again will look different for different people, just depending on what it is that they're trying to overcome. But there has to be a self-awareness and a self-acknowledgement, and then a desire to move forward and beyond.
I love that. Karen had a really, really good question in the chat. She said, do you have any inspirational books or podcasts that you listen to that talk about limiting beliefs?
Brene Brown is like a step under Jesus. Like, it's like Jesus and then like Brene Brown, like, you know what I mean? But, so there, I love everything that she does. Like, I read all of her books. And there's also a book, I have to check.
Also just launched a podcast too.
Yes.
The episodes are a little too long, but it's okay. Brene also.
But they're so good.
20 to 30 minutes. I can't be doing this hour and a half. Like,
But,
is good.
who else is it? Carolyn Leaf. Dr. Carolyn Leaf is a neuroscientist, and she actually is the foundation for the STEER model, because what she does is she takes biblical principles and she applies it to science. And she always says how science is just now catching up with the Bible. And it's so cool to see this scientist be able to apply the word, and it's all in a very motivational way, and showing you the same kinds of things that I just talked about, as far as our brains and retraining your brains. And there's a book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. I can't remember right now who wrote it, but it's a really good book. And again, it kind of invites you to challenge your thought processes. Oh, and my book. My book is very motivational, inspirational. You can find it on Amazon. But and it digs into the STEER models, and it's all about, again, overcoming the past to just create, to realize that you create your own future. So shifting your mindset as well.
I also dropped one of my favorite podcasts. It's called Unf Your Brain. And it's all about reverse thinking, and just how like it runs off this ideology that every situation is neutral. It's just whatever the thought is that we assign to that situation that produces the feeling, that produces our action, that produces our result. It's
right.
It's amazing. It's kind of similar to the STEER model.
It is, and all the STEER model is, it's called cognitive behavioral therapy. It's just a really easy way to remember it, like to apply it to something that we do in our day-to-day lives. Like we talk about steering and shifting and like doing all of that. It just makes it easier to remember, but it's not a new concept at all. And most of these books and podcasts that we're talking about will probably bring it up cognitive behavioral therapy in some kind of way.
Beautiful. Do we have any last questions? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brenda. Let's give her a virtual round of applause.
Thank you.
It was amazing. I feel uplifted and inspired. So without further ado, we're not done yet. We have some giveaways. I'm going to turn it over to Candace for our raffle item of today.
All right. Thank you, Brenda, for getting my life together again on another Wednesday in this great October month. So I do have a basket today. Try to pick it up without messing it up so I can give you guys a preview. So it's another wine themed basket. If you can see, it's beautiful. So we have wine glasses in here with a matching decanter, which are beautiful. We have rosé wine with rosé cheese. Just throw that out there. And we got some salami and crackers. Then back here we have Her Beautiful Mind, of course, from Brenta Coulter. And then we do have a gift certificate from 1965. That 1965 clothing, that's for $40. And then we do have our gift certificate from Rising Careers worth $250. And then we do also have a custom planner or notebook from Monica's Creations as well in here. And let me go ahead and I have somebody in my background bugging me to pick the name. So I guess I'll let her.
Let Nyana pick the name.
I know, I am.
Hi, Nyana.
Hey, Alicia.
Hey, Alicia.
And our lucky winner is, oh my God, your hammer is thin.
Who's the winner, Nyana?
Heather Lynch.
Did you
Heather
say
Lynch.
that?
Yay.
Yep, Heather Lynch.
But I don't think she's on today, but yay.
All right. So
Virtual clap for Heather Lynch. Candace, can you make sure you like remind me to reach out to the people?
well, yeah, because I would like to get this back. Is she local?
Yes, she's an actor.
I would like to get this basket to her as soon as possible because it has the cheese in
The
there.
cheese. Okay, so we'll connect. So yay, virtual claps for Heather Lynch. Thank you so much, Candace. She is
You're
our
welcome.
planner, excellent person. I don't know what I'd do without her. So so once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I dropped in the chat the link to donate to Limitless Ambition. So of course, like I said before, women's empowerment events is one arm of the things that Limitless Ambition does. We have teen enrichment programs. We're in 5 schools right now. That's why I look so exhausted. Well, one of the reasons. We also donate care packages to young girls in foster care, give away scholarships. We do a lot of good things in the community. So if you're looking to donate, you can do so at that link, or if you want to get involved, I also dropped our volunteer link. We have over 20 amazing women who volunteer with us. We have a full functioning board of directors, committees. We have people who help us with our programs. Any type of passion you have, we definitely have an outlet and could always use the help. So thank you all. Our last and final session will be next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. The speaker is this amazing, phenomenal woman by the name of Alicia Robinson. She is the founder and executive director of Limitless Ambition, and she will be talking about launching your legacy. So we had so many talks about, I was up to 3 a.m. working on this the other night, so it's fresh. But we had so many talks talking about, moving out of your own way, unfolding your beliefs, unfolding your purpose. But now we're gonna actually get into the launch phase. And I'm gonna talk a lot about how Limitless Ambition came about, how I started it, but then also how I developed a team to help me push it forward as well. So we're going to get really tangible, a lot of really good tangible takeaways, kind of similar to Zinga's presentation. She had a lot of, me and Zinga operate very similar. We have a lot of action steps. You will have homework and we will want you to report back. So it's good to just know how to not only launch a nonprofit, but to launch any vision, any project, any passion. So whether it's launching a business or going back to school or doing a career change or getting a promotion on your job, it will really give you the tools to kind of just launch whatever it is you want to launch. So I'm really, really excited. It's all in note form, so I need to get it into a PowerPoint presentation. So I got 6 days to do that. But I hope to see you all back next week. Thank you all for your support. I love you all. I wish you guys a prosperous and peaceful end of the week. Do something to celebrate yourself this week. Do something to love on yourself, to take care of yourself. Let us know if you have any questions. We will be in the room, the virtual room, for a while if you want to hang out. But yeah, have a great week, everybody.